focusing on is showing more empathy to myself, because I've always felt that I have been good at showing empathy to other people. I definitely say that that is one of my strengths, kindness. And I feel like that is because
Who is Nadia Dalphinis?
Great question. I am 37 years old, soon to be 38.
Never.
Yes.
Sorry, I have to stop you. I have to stop you. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, hold up, wait a minute.
Yeah, soon to be 38. Yeah, so that's fast approaching. I am a creative and I am neurodivergent. I'm also a wife, I'm a mother of 2 children, and yeah, and I'm a teacher as well. I was studying at the Institute of Education and I was on my second job placement, sorry, work placement. Wonderful, wonderful mentor called 𝗬𝗓𝗄𝗧. And I remember he gave me a list of things that he wanted me to complete. And then I returned the following week and we sat down, because we'd always sit down after teaching a lesson and review it and then plan for the next lesson. And he said to me, oh, you know, I gave you a list of things to do, but you didn't do all the things I asked you to. And I said, I don't remember you asked me to do these things. He said, I definitely asked you to do those things, Nadia. And I was like, oh, I just did not recall at all. And I think that was when he started doing some delving into my background. I remember him saying that he pulled up my application for my PGCE, and I was very honest in saying that I had grown up feeling like I was stupid, because that's genuinely how I felt. But it was never something that I disclosed. I would never dare disclose that to anybody. But within myself, I'd always felt that way. And one of the reasons why I wanted to pursue teaching was because I didn't want anyone to have to go through that experience. And so he said to me that for someone to make such a striking statement, that was sort of indicative of there being sort of like maybe an undisclosed need going, that was like taking place. Yeah, he diagnosed me with dyslexia. And so that was where it began. And I remember him asking me, did you ever feel like you were different? And I just thought, yeah, absolutely. I'd always felt like I was different, but I think going back to never really feeling maybe confident or comfortable in speaking that aloud, because I felt as though if I was honest about that, then everyone would know that it was like almost like a secret. Like, you know, if I tell you that I feel different, then you're definitely going to know that I feel different. And I think now that I reflect upon it, that's probably where my masking started from. And you might find that term comes up a lot in the neurodivergent community.
Feel as if you were different when you were growing up?
Yes, now that I look back, yes. I never fit in. I was always sort of like on the outside of things. I never had like a best friend or a group of set friends who, you know, I believed really wanted to be in my company. I always felt like I was trying to sort of keep up, trying to sort of mimic what they would do, the things that they would say, or the way in which they would behave to a certain extent, to sort of fit in, quote unquote. But I never told anyone about that. I just always felt that, and I kept that to myself.
Okay, so because growing up is like, obviously we grew up together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, family and all that.
Mm.
Said that you were masking. What in the ways that you were masking? What was you doing?
So for me, masking was pretending like I understood what I was supposed to be doing. That happened a lot in school because I didn't want to be ostracized. I wanted to go along with the flow like everyone else. But yeah, I would definitely describe myself as a very shy child, very much an introvert. And now I think back, my brain is constantly trying to process information, and that is a trait of having attention deficit disorder, is that there is a slower processing of information that takes place. I might be filled with anxiety because I'm like, oh, can I actually do this? I'm not sure if I can. So there are all these things that are going on in my mind that no one's aware of. And perhaps that contributed to why I was so quiet, because I'm constantly trying to process things.
Saying that, and I'm thinking, what were the symptoms? Because when I am in my thoughts, like very lethargic. So what was it like for you?
The same.
The same.
Yeah. Yeah, the same. I remember, like, whenever I finished school, I was always tired. I was always tired, and that comes from just being exhausted, because your brain is doing a lot more work than the brain of a neurotypical person, because you're trying to work at a faster pace, and it just isn't working at that pace, and you just have to keep up, you know? So I just accepted, this is the way things are. You're slower at doing things. It just is what it is. You still have to get the job done.
So when you were diagnosed, you said, aha, that is the reason why everything sort of like started to make sense for you.
For me, that was just a starting point. I remember I think I was in a webinar online about dyslexia in education. And I remember the person who was leading the webinar said, you know, dyslexia rarely comes on its own. And that was like a big question mark for me. Well, that's interesting, because I only know that I have dyslexia. So that could possibly mean that there's something else. And that started my inquiry into what else I could possibly have. I've always thought of my memory as maybe a bucket, let's say, a bucket that has holes in it, like really small holes. And so when I'm putting sand in, so information that I need to remember, like I'm going to lose some information because there are holes in the bucket. And, you know, I tell myself, no, I'll remember this information, but I just can't. It goes in one ear, I retain some things, and the rest is gone.
How has that affected your everyday life?
It's very frustrating, because I think prior to finding out that I had ADD, I was very frustrated at myself and sometimes very angry. I've spent a long time berating myself and putting myself down because I wasn't remembering, and it made me feel like I was incompetent. It made me feel like I was untrustworthy. It made me feel like I wasn't a good person, because I would forget things, and, you know, I knew that I would be judged on not remembering things. And it's not just in sort of like work environments, also in like relationships or friendships. Remembering things is important. Remembering that I'm supposed to be meeting you for 1 p.m. and I'm realizing at 12:45, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be meeting you today. Or forgetting birthdays or special occasions, or even like if you perhaps called me and I thought, oh, you know, I'll call her later because I'm a bit busy now. Sometimes 5 days could pass. I'm like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot to call you back. And that communicates to someone that she doesn't care, because if she cared, she'd answer my phone call. And if she didn't answer my phone call, she'd at least communicate with me that she was busy or call me back. So that's definitely had an impact throughout my life.
So lessons learned, isn't it, about the importance of showing empathy to people?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because you don't just always have to assume, oh, just because Susie didn't call back is because she doesn't care about me or she's forgotten about me. We don't know what Susie's doing. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, there's always going to be a reason for whatever it is. I'm focusing on is showing more empathy to myself, because I've always felt that I have been good at showing empathy to other people. I definitely say that that is one of my strengths, kindness. And I feel like that is because I never showed kindness to myself.
Mm.
I found myself in spaces as an employee wanting to just be kind and to be polite and to be liked. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that, especially if you are neurodivergent, because you are different. You are different from everyone else. It is a hidden disability. It's not obvious that I'm neurodivergent. You wouldn't know unless I told you or you asked. And so you're battling with wanting to be accepted by everyone else, but also accepting that you are different. And so you're not going to be like everyone else, you know, because that's not the way my brain was made. And I think there is a beauty in that. Like, I can't extract the negative aspects of being neurodivergent from the good aspects. It's not possible. It's like, you know, it comes as one. But it is really hard. It is hard because I feel like I'm constantly having to sort of prove myself to the world that I'm worthy, that I can do the things that I put my mind to. It just may take me longer. I might need to do it in a different way. And I think what's wonderful is that I get to be in an environment with the way that the world is now in regards to having more information and understanding about neurodiversity. I get to still live my life in a society that is doing the work to be more supportive, to be more empathetic, to be more understanding.
So very powerful what you shared there about how you are very compassionate, kind, considerate with others, is because that is a need that you want for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Because I just think when I think back to my childhood, it was a really lonely time for me. And I think that has been like a consistent component of my life, lots of periods of loneliness. And I think when you are neurodivergent, it can be really isolating because for me, it feels like there is like an additional layer of communication that takes place that I just don't understand. Like if you think about autism, which is a, you know, like a sort of a spectrum disorder, let's look at Asperger's, for example. There is a difficulty in understandings, or should I say a lack of like emotional understanding, and an inability to read emotions, to recognize them, to interpret them, to create an understanding of other people's emotions. And that's what it feels like to me, that there is this like additional layer of communication that I just don't see. I don't hear it, I don't see it. My brain doesn't compute what that is, that takes place in conversations and being in certain spaces with around and being around other people, that I just don't understand. So I feel like I'm sort of on my own. I'm quite isolated because I can't really break through that barrier. And it's hard because other people look at me and think, oh yeah, you know, she's like everyone else, but I'm really not. I had my official diagnosis and I was asked many questions. And I think one of the questions that stood out to me was, what's it like having a conversation? What are you like in a new environment? And I said, well, if I'm meeting someone new or if I'm networking, I have already pre-prepared a list of questions that I'm going to ask.
Really?
And she said, oh, okay, yeah, that's a typical indicator, because that's not what a neurotypical person would do. But I have to prepare because my brain is going, well, first of all, I'm going to be really anxious if I'm in a new space and you come up to me and say, oh, hello, how are you today? And I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, quickly, what's the next question? What could it be? Think of an answer, think of a question to come back with, to keep her engaged, to make it look like you're intelligent. You know, that is what my brain is doing. So before I've even arrived at the event, I've already got a list of questions. Say this now. Okay. And now look this way. Okay. Then you're going to do this next. It's almost like I'm sort of directing my own experience. It's like a film. But that is what I have trained myself to do. And I would say that would be an example of what masking is, because you don't know what's going on in my mind, but and it looks normal on the outside, but it isn't. What's happening in my brain isn't normal, because I'm having to, you know, prepare in advance so that I can keep up with a conversation. Otherwise, I'm going to be sat there staring at you and thinking, oh, I don't really know what to say. And then that's going to create an awkwardness for you and I. You might think, oh, I'm not sure about her. She's a bit strange. And so in order to make sure that doesn't happen, I have to have a list of questions in my brain.
Wow, I'm learning so much about my beautiful cousin here. And firstly, you know, I've got so much love for you and admiration, okay? And if I could stretch myself through the Zoom call and give you a hug, I would.
Oh, thank
Because
you so much.
I truly overstand the bit about loving yourself. I always think that you're transparent and you're authentic, especially when me and you are having conversations. There's a lot going on. And I'm thinking, I'm just having a chat with you, blah, 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 blah.
I'm constantly thinking. I'm definitely an overthinker. I think intensely about everything. And I always thought that that's how everyone thought, but it really isn't. Especially on Instagram, a lot of people talk about ADHD and they make jokes and stuff, which is, it's nice because you're like, oh my gosh, okay, me too, I can definitely relate to that. And I remember someone recently spoke about when they're given, maybe like they're going to go to an event, and then they'll think about all the things that could possibly go wrong, and it takes them somewhere wild. Like, that is how my brain works. So for example, I went to Jamaica last year with yourself, traveled for the first time on my own, which was a massive deal for me. And in my mind, I think about things like, oh, well, what happens if my cousin and my aunt don't collect from the airport? Because, you know, I could get collected by someone else. You know, they might offer me a lift and I might take that lift, and then, but what if they take me somewhere else? And then, you know, I'm never found, and then I'm just going to end up living the rest of my life in Jamaica. My kids will never see me again. That would be really awful, wouldn't it? That is where my brain goes. I'm like, come on, that's ridiculous. Don't do that. But that's just how my brain thinks. I'm always thinking of worst case scenario. And maybe that's because I want to be prepared. Well, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to speak to someone at the airport that I don't know, even if they offer me a lift and say, oh, you know, I'll take it for free, which I wouldn't do anyway. But that is how my brain has always functioned. I'm always on a journey somewhere else, you know, like I'm just very easily distracted. That's another aspect of being neurodivergent, is focus. I find it very difficult to focus. And so it's really important, if you are neurodivergent, that you pursue something that captivates your interest, because you're going to need it. You're going to need to stay invested and interested. And having ADD, my interest, my focus is dopamine based. So if I don't get that feeling, that feel good feeling, or, you know, of something that I'm enjoying, then it's going to be really hard to stay focused on this task and complete it. And it could be a really short task that maybe would take 20 to 30 minutes. That could take me 4 days, because I'm battling against myself. I'm having to motivate myself to do something that my brain's just like, I don't feel like doing that. Let's do something else.
I just love that when I'm listening to you, I just love that you know yourself. You are very, very self-aware. And,
Yes.
you know, we can talk about neurodiversity and ADHD, and the conversations tend to highlight around the negatives of it. Do you know what I mean? The lack of focus, the lack of concentration, etc. But what about the superpowers? What about, you know, the positives of being neurodivergent?
Myself, I definitely say it is my creativity. I was looking back at some reports, I think last year, and I was never really academic, but where I always excelled was anything creative. And I remember, I think my year 5 teacher said she has a thorough, really acute understanding of color and composition. And I remember thinking, wow, in year 5, like, really, like, I wish she told me that. Do you know what I mean? And for someone of that age, I guess that was impressive, but it was just what I knew. And wanting to help others. So, you know, we spoke about kindness earlier. just always had this desire to want to help others because of my own experiences. And being polite, I feel like having good manners is something that was definitely instilled in me as a child. And in today's society, like it's significantly lacking. But like gestures of kindness, for example, there was a road sweeper on my road yesterday that I see around, when I take my children to and from school in the mornings. And I went to the shop to get myself a snack, and then I went back to the shop and bought a little carton of coconut water. And I said to him, "Oh, like, drink this and think of Jamaica, you'll be fine." Do you know what I mean? But just like little things like that, that means so much to me.
One time when you and Andre went out of your way to get me the True Juice June plum.
Oh,
Because when we was in
yeah.
Jamaica, I was drinking it, drinking
It
it
was.
with me ''�𝗚𝗃𝗃 𝗃𝗃 and stuff like
Yes.
that. And
Good
you was like,
time.
"Soph, man," but I didn't even know. So that so touched me. See, because I remember it. Do you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
so touched me and it blessed me. That was just so lovely to think that somebody thought of me. Somebody thought of me. Even in terms of your creativity, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So how has your diagnosis? Has it been a challenge with regards to your business?
I called it super sentimental because I'm a very sentimental person. And I think it's a nice way to sort of segue into that based on what we just discussed about acts of kindness. Yes, I definitely feel like I have made a lot of headway this year with super sentimental. And I feel like that is because I have had a business coach, a creative business coach, who's really helped me to gain a more in-depth understanding of what it means to run a business. It's not simply, oh, I've made a design and I'm going to stick it on a mug and sell it. There is so much more that needs to be understood when it comes to running a creative business.
What are the key nuggets that you would like our watchers and listeners to really remember about this particular episode?
I would highly recommend that you seek advice, go to your doctor, ask for a referral, and seek support. There's a lot of information out there on the internet. There are many, many, many groups that you can join to build your own community. And community is definitely really important when you are neurodivergent, because you want to find people that are able to relate to your lived experiences and are able to give their own sort of guidance and wisdom. So I think community is really important. I would say that if you are not interested in seeking a referral, but you just maybe feel that there's something different about you, then I think it's important to accept that you are different. We're not all born the same, and that's okay. It's okay to be different. I think that would be something that I really want for everyone to remember, that it's okay to be different. And I think my last piece of advice would be to show kindness to yourself. Showing kindness to yourself can sometimes be a challenge. It's definitely a challenge for myself. I find it so much easier to try to show kindness to everyone else except myself. So I'm by no means an expert in showing kindness, but every day I'm showing up and remembering that, another day is another opportunity. If you don't get things done today, there's always tomorrow. And not to be so hard on yourself, because, within each and every one of us is child. You have to look after your inner child. And I feel like when I am unkind to myself, I'm being unkind to my inner child. And you wouldn't be unkind to a child, would you? So you've got to look after your inner child, which means you have to look after yourself. And that holds me accountable to show kindness to myself.
That is beautiful, 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 man. Boy, you are an amazing, beautiful cousin, friend, mother. Do you know what I mean? Brilliant educator. You want to see this woman in a classroom, you'd be like, okay, yeah, I need to stay here because I'm going to learn from this lady. Okay. So yeah, I appreciate you and I love you. And thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you, so.